Ivanka Trump thought her words would stay buried until Jasmine Crockett turned one insult into a national moment of reckoning. What happened behind closed doors in Scottsdale was never meant to leave the room, but it did. And when it did, even Crockett's harshest critics fell silent. The ballroom at the Silverleaf Club glowed under soft chandeliers. Wine poured. Les Mignons was served. It was an exclusive Republican fundraiser, tight security. No press, just 48 attendees. Wealthy. Donors and strategists. Ivanka Trump arrived late, poised, greeting guests like old friends. Officially, she wasn't there to run for anything, but the optics, the designer dress. The curated guest list spoke like a soft campaign launch. The night rolled on without issue. Then someone mentioned that loud one from Texas. Not by name, just implication. There were chuckles around the table. One woman said she'd seen Jasmine Crockett on MSNBC. Another mocked her as trying to be AOC with a law degree. That's when Ivanka leaned back, sipped her wine, and said it quietly. She's ghetto trash. That's all she is. The laughter that followed was quieter and certain. Not everyone smiled. The comment wasn't shouted, wasn't part of any speech. It was casual. Too casual, as if no one in the room would object, but one guest did object silently. A young donor made eye contact with a woman across the table, a longtime Hill staffer turned consultant. She didn't react visibly, but later that night, she texted a contact in Washington. Ivanka said something real nasty about Crockett. Tonight, you need to know. That text reached a reporter for a small Capitol Hill blog. Sharp instincts, better sources. By morning, 2 people had confirmed the phrase. One even shared a voice note, quietly recorded on a phone. It wasn't perfect audio, but the words were unmistakable. By early afternoon, 3 senior editors had the story. By 2:30 p.m., it was published. Ivanka Trump allegedly called Representative Jasmine Crockett ghetto trash during private fundraiser. The internet needed no further confirmation. The story exploded: screenshots, live streams, debates. Twitter trended. Tubers raged. Some called it straight from the Mar-a-Lago playbook. Others demanded a statement from Ivanka. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett was at her desk in D.C., catching up on committee work, when her chief of staff, Andre, stepped in. Wordlessly, he handed her his phone. She read the headline. Once, then again, slowly. No outburst, no reaction. Just a measured, almost calm reply. So she thinks I'm trash. Andre sat across from her. She thinks she's protected behind a $2,000 plate and closed doors, he said. But someone in that room wanted you to know. Jasmine stared out the window for a long moment, her mind moving like train cars in silence. No press release, she finally said, then stood. Schedule me. MSNBC, tonight. Andre blinked. You sure? Yes, she said. I'm not going to yell, not going to match her insult, but I'm going to make sure every young black girl in this country hears what I have to say. Asterisk, asterisk outside. A slow summer storm rolled in. Inside her office, something else gathered strength. In the hours before the segment, Jasmine barely moved from her desk. She scrolled through the chaos online, support, defenses, and yes, some vile, racist garbage. She didn't respond. Never had. But one video stopped her thumb mid-dash scroll. It was grainy, just 20 seconds. Cell phone footage from inside the event. Low chatter. Then Ivanka's voice, faint but clear. She's ghetto trash. That's all she... Is Jasmine put the phone down like it burned? We knew it was real, Andre said. I needed to hear it, she replied quietly. She held her pen tightly, too tightly. Andre handed her a granola bar. You haven't eaten since breakfast. I'll eat after I speak. You sure you want to go live? Absolutely, she said. I want them to see my face, hear my tone, No spin. No edits. And if she still wants to call me trash after that, let her. Andre hesitated. You know how they'll twist this. They'll be the angry black woman, emotional, unhinged. Jasmine turned to face him directly. Let them try. I've prepped federal cases on no sleep. Been cross-examined with minutes to spare. I've been called worse to my face, but I've never been silent. Not once, and that night, she wouldn't be. Then Jasmine added, almost casually, let me show them how trash talks. They both cracked a smile, small, fleeting, but real. An hour later, Jasmine sat in the MSNBC green room, getting her makeup touched up. No prep questions, no pre-interview. No script. She'd refused all of it. The producer had asked twice. She'd said no. Twice, her segment got bumped up after a sitting senator abruptly canceled, likely trying to avoid being anywhere near the Ivanka fallout. That was fine. More space for her. Backstage, waiting for the commercial break to end. She stared at the floor, breathing slow and deliberate. Not anxious, just controlled. Under her breath, she murmured, trash doesn't break. It bends, it burns. But it don't break. The floor manager flashed a 2-finger countdown. And just like that, they were live. She sat across from host Carla Mendez, who looked both tense and relieved. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is here with us tonight. Representative, thank you for being here. Jasmine nodded. Happy to. B. Carla didn't waste a second. You've read the article. You've heard the audio. The phrase ghetto trash, allegedly from Ivanka Trump, has been trending all day. What do you want to say? Jasmine didn't blink. I want to say that those two words, ghetto trash, have a long history. And it's not Ivanka's to use, but she clearly feels at home using it. Carla leaned forward. Explain. And Jasmine did. For 4 steady minutes, she unpacked the coded insult. She traced how ghetto had been used to segregate, how trash was slapped onto anyone who dared resist it. No shouting, no cursing, no theatrics. When you call someone ghetto trash, she said, what you're really saying is, you don't belong here. But here's the thing, the door's open now. When they can't close it, they try to shame the ones walking through. Carla looked stunned. Jasmine pressed on. If being unapologetically black, smart, and sharp-tongued makes me trash, then maybe America needs to ask who took the garbage out before I got here. Carla blinked. Congresswoman, but she stopped. Nothing needed to follow that back in her dressing room. Jasmine peeled off her mic and finally opened the granola bar from earlier. She didn't smile. She didn't exhale. She just said, quietly, 1 down. But outside that studio, something much bigger had started. The clip hit social media before Jasmine even left the building. A producer had trimmed it, added captions, and posted it to the network's official account. Within 20 minutes, 400,000 views. By the time Jasmine's car turned onto Constitution Avenue, her phone was buzzing nonstop calls, texts, mentions, group chats lighting up like a storm. Andre glanced at the screen while driving. You broke the damn algorithm. Jasmine didn't answer right away. She was watching the clip herself, not with vanity, but with precision. Like a lawyer reviewing courtroom footage. Play it again, she said. Andre smirked. You've already seen it 5 times. 6, she corrected. She crossed her arms and watched again. When it ended, she said softly, I meant every word. Andre nodded. We know, and now America knows. By morning, to 3.8 million views. Celebrities reposting. Professors citing it. Analysts calling it measured and razor sharp. But something deeper was happening. In a South Dallas classroom, a teacher played the clip and asked, what do you think she meant when she said they can't keep the door closed anymore? In an Oakland barbershop, The video looped on a mounted TV. One customer said, "This ain't politics. This is how we're seen." In Grand Rapids, Michigan, a retired postal worker named Lorraine Winfield forwarded the clip to her church group with a note, "We should talk about this on Sunday." Of course, the hate came too. Trolls flooded Jasmine's inbox, racist messages, mocking memes, accusations that she was playing the victim. She deleted most of them, but one message made her stop. A DM from a woman in Fort Myers, Florida. "I used to vote red, but the way you spoke, calm, clear, real. I've never seen anyone on TV talk like that. You didn't back down. I think I needed to see that." "Thank you," Jasmine said, showing the message to Andre. "You think she's real?" He nodded. "People like her exist. They're just quietened, so something wakes them up." And it wasn't just voters paying attention. On Capitol Hill, colleagues who usually kept their distance were suddenly texting. Some sent clapping emojis. One simply wrote, "That was fire." But the most unexpected message came from a Republican staffer. No name, no title. "Just a burner email, we've heard. Worse in rooms like that, you're not overreacting." Stay loud back in her office, Andre sifted through a flood of interview requests. "CBS wants you on their morning show," he said, scrolling. "NPR, even the BBC. I'm not doing a media tour," Jasmine replied. One appearance was enough. Andre raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" "Let the clip speak," I said. "What needed saying? If I start explaining it, people will start picking it apart." He paused. "So, what do we do now?" "We wait," she said, "and we listen. I want to see who stays quiet, who tries to spin it, and who shows up when it counts." Andre closed his laptop slowly. "You realize Ivanka still hasn't said a word?" "I know," Jasmine said. "That silence. It's not power. It's strategy. She's waiting to see if it dies down." Andre leaned back. "Think it will?" "Us." Jasmine stood and looked out the window. Protesters were already gathering on the Capitol steps, holding signs that read, "We are not trash, and speak loud. Stand tall." "No," she said. "Not this time." But while the public praised her strength behind closed doors in D.C., nerves were fraying, and the Trump circle, they were starting to sweat. By Friday afternoon, it wasn't just a viral clip. It was the national conversation. Cable news played the interview on a loop. Pundits dissected every sentence like sacred text. Conservative talk radio dismissed it as a stunt, but even some admitted she never raised her voice. She just looked into the camera and handed out a political whooping. Old school. That ain't easy. Social media was a wildfire. Hashtags like #WeAreNotTrash, #Crockett claps back, and #SpeakLoud, Stand Tall trended for over 24 hours. TikTok creators layered her speech over graduation walks, courtroom victories, neighborhood cleanups, and street protests. One viral video showed a single mother in Gary, Indiana. "They called us ghetto too. Said we'd never make it, but look at my son, first in the family to go to college." Representative Crockett. She speaks for folks like us. In LA, an artist painted a mural on the side of a laundromat. Jasmine's face. Beside the quote, "If I'm trash, then America's had a sanitation problem since 1776. Someone else printed it on shirts. And just like that, the movement had a tagline. But this wasn't just culture, was cash. Her campaign donations tripled in 48 hours. Grassroots money poured in. $10 here, $50 there. One woman from Minneapolis sent $3.17 with a note. "It's all I had after rent. But you're speaking for me." Even more shocking. Two longtime Republican donors tech CEOs from Colorado Springs issued public statements reconsidering their support for the Trump family. One wrote, "When language like that goes unchecked, we all lose. Inside Republican circles, panic spread. Calls flew. Meetings snapped into motion at a closed-door Palm Beach fundraiser. A senior strategist exploded. Why the hell did she say it at all? No one had an answer. Ivanka. Still silent, her social media feed marched on. Pre-scheduled smiles, filtered lighting, cheerful captions. No mention of Jasmine, no denial. No apology. The silence was louder than the slur. Back in Washington, Jasmine stayed off camera. No press conference. No self-congratulations. She'd just returned to work. Briefings, committee hearings, constituent calls like the world hadn't tilted. But people found her anyway. At a coffee shop near the Capitol, an older man approached. While she waited for her order, "You Crockett?" he asked. She nodded cautiously. He held up his phone. The paused video showed her face mid-speech. "Watched this last night," he said. 3 times. "You made me think about my own daughter," the man said. "I was proud of you." Jasmine blinked, caught off guard. "Thank you, sir." He tipped his head. Make them uncomfortable. That's how change starts. Back at the office, Andre was still buried in emails. "You've got over 23 unopened messages," he said. "And that's just today." "Filter by name and organization," Jasmine replied, slipping off her coat. "You want the high-profile ones?" "No," she said. "Give me the teachers, the single moms. The people who never write to anyone except this once." Jasmine had always known politics was theater. But this felt different. She wasn't crafting a brand. She wasn't chasing clicks. She'd hit something deeper. Older a nerve this country kept pretending didn't exist. That night, walking home alone, her heels echoed down the pavement. As she passed a group of young people on a street corner, they began to clap. She gave a humble wave. Didn't stop. Didn't need to say a word. But across the country, silence was sounding different. Ivanka's silence. It no longer looked like strategy. It looked like surrender. The weekend passed with nothing from her. No statement. No press. No denial. Instead, she posted a beach photo with her children, captioned, "Grateful for this beautiful weekend." But the comments told another story. Apologize to Jasmine Crockett. Is ghetto trash what you think of all of us? This isn't going away. Replies were shut down within hours, but screenshots never die. By Monday, the silence wasn't just awkward. It was dangerous. Even allies were growing uneasy. At a GOP brunch in Charleston, a longtime donor was overheard. This would have blown over if she just said something. Behind closed doors, her advisors were split. One camp begged for a denial. Another pushed her to call the leak fake. A third urged her to let the media move on. But Ivanka didn't like being managed. She believed the Trump name still held enough gravity to weather the storm. Hadn't her father survived worse? But this wasn't about policy or party lines. It was personal, loaded, rooted in centuries of dismissal. The kind of insult that didn't just sting, it split something open. And once it cracked, it couldn't be closed. Meanwhile, Jasmine stayed silent too deliberately. Reporters stalked her. Steps, she smiled, waved, kept walking. When asked if she had more to say, she simply replied, "Watch the clip again." Power had quietly shifted. And Ivanka, whether she realized it or not, was losing ground, hour by hour. Fox News scrambled to defend her. One anchor claimed the audio was a Democrat fabrication, but viewers didn't buy it. The voice sounded too real, the silence too rehearsed. By Wednesday, cracks started to show. A lukewarm statement dropped. Buried in a packed newsletter. "We do not believe that divisive rhetoric alleged or reflects the values of our donors or movement." No. Signature. No mention of Jasmine. No mention of ghetto trash. And not a word from Ivanka herself. It made things worse. Late that night, journalist Denise Tran tweeted, "If silence is strategy, this is a losing one." Even conservative columnist Bryce Yatesno, fan of Jasmine, a brutal op-ed. Ivanka Trump's calculated quiet isn't restraint. It's cowardice. She had the chance to show grace. She didn't. She had the chance to apologize. She didn't. In doing nothing, she's made the insult feel not just real but rehearsed. Pressure surged. Donors grew nervous, pollsters reported. Suburban women Ivanka's core base were turning cold. A whisper campaign began. Maybe she should sit this election cycle out. Meanwhile, Jasmine's silence wasn't passive. It was surgical. No follow-ups. No interviews. She let the clip breathe. Every time it was reshared, her moment got bigger and Ivanka, smaller, by Thursday. The New York Times ran a feature titled, "The Power of Saying Nothing When You've Already Said Enough." A photo showed Jasmine at the MSNBC, desk poised. Beside it, Ivanka, head down, dodging cameras. That morning, the contrast became impossible to ignore. Jasmine stepped into her office and spotted a folded note slipped under the door. Lined paper, blue ink. No envelope. She opened it. "I've worked in Republican fundraising for 15 years. I was in that room. I heard her say it. I'm sorry I didn't. Speak up sooner. You handled this with grace. You've changed more minds than you know." It wasn't signed. Jasmine folded the note and slipped it into her desk drawer. No smile, no tears. Just a glance out the window. "It's turning," she said softly. What she didn't know was that the storm brewing for Ivanka's donors wasn't going to whisper. It was going to roar. By Friday afternoon, a real shift wasn't happening on Twitter. It was unfolding inside spreadsheets and boardrooms. 2. Our major donors in Austin quietly pulled their pledged $500,000 from a Trump-affiliated gala in Miami. No press release, just a call. "We're out." That silence didn't last. An insider leaked the drop to Politico, which ran a sharp headline. Funders began to distance themselves from Ivanka Trump. That headline sparked panic. By Saturday, Jasmine's name wasn't just trending, it was fundraising. Her campaign dashboard couldn't refresh fast enough. Donations poured in from across the country, $10, $15, $75 at a time. One retired judge from Spokane gave $12,000. Writing, "I saw how calmly you handled disrespect." That's leadership. That's presidential. Jasmine read that one aloud. The office erupted. She didn't. "Too early," she said. "We've got more work to do." But it wasn't just money. At a community event in Toledo, a woman stood during a Q&A and said into the mic, "I don't have a question. I just want to thank you. My daughter's 11. She saw your clip. Now she walks taller." Jasmine nodded, pressed her lips. She blinked hard. The crowd filled the silence with applause. Back in Washington, Ivanka's team was unraveling. Phones rang. Donors wanted answers. Would she apologize? Was the tape real? What was the strategy? Ivanka offered none. Her method had always been control of message, access, headlines. But now the headlines were writing themselves, and donors were growing restless. At a closed-door event in Phoenix, an oil exec pulled a $200,000 appearance fee for Ivanka. His reason? "I don't want this trash fire anywhere near my brand." The irony stung. A few days later, Jasmine received a personal letter from Linda Wong, a billionaire tech philanthropist in Portland. Inside was a check for $250,000 made out to Jasmine's new voter outreach initiative. "You didn't shout. You didn't drag anyone. You showed strength. That's where changed lives." Jasmine showed the letter to Andre. "Do you know how many women get talked about like that and never get a chance to answer?" she asked. Andre leaned back. "Too many." She looked at the check. Let's use this to build a platform. One they can stand on. Andre nodded. This isn't just about you anymore, Jazz. She already knew. Every text, every donation. Every teenager tagging her on TikTok. Every older woman calling her office just to say thank you. They all pointed to the same truth. She'd become a vessel for something much bigger than herself. But even as her star rose, the backlash came swift. Right-wing columnists dismissed her as theatrical. Think tanks framed her response as weaponized victimhood. She ignored them. She didn't have to respond. The public was doing it for her. A viral Twitter thread from a political science professor in Cincinnati said it best. What Jasmine Crockett did wasn't just a clap back. It was a masterclass in cultural translation. She took a coded slur, unmasked it, and handed America a mirror. The fact that more people are mad at her response than the slur itself, that's the real story. Inside GOP donor circles, panic set in. One Republican strategist, speaking to Reuters, admitted, "We've lost control of the conversation." And Crockett, she's the one driving it now. Even Ivanka's inner circle began to fracture. Her longtime media advisor resigned, quietly citing creative differences. Others stayed, but started looking for lifeboats. Meanwhile, Jasmine's approval numbers climbed not just among her base, but across age groups, party lines, and states. That week, the Des Moines Register dropped a poll. 42% of independent voters now viewed her favorably. The shift was no longer cultural, it was political, and it was just beginning. By the time the Des Moines Register dropped its poll, the numbers told a story that even her opponents couldn't ignore. 42% of independent voters now viewed Jasmine Crockett more favorably after the MSNBC segment. Among women under 40, that number surged to 61%. In an interview with the Philadelphia Inquirer, former GOP donor Robert Donnelly put it bluntly, "I might not agree with her politics, but I trust her to tell me the truth." Can't say that about Ivanka anymore. Jasmine didn't celebrate, not publicly. But that night, she stayed late at the office, personally returning donor calls. Not to the ones writing big checks, but to the ones who gave $5 and left a note that hit the gut. And just as her image reached a new kind of clarity, the opposition began to shift shape. What came next didn't have a name or a face. It had whispers. It had reach. The air in the Tallahassee town hall was thick and restless. Folding chairs sat crooked on a waxed tile floor. A hand-lettered sign above the podium read, "Voices that matter, no press, no sponsors. Just locals, organizers, college kids, working families, and a speaker who came not to talk about Ivanka, but about what mattered long before Ivanka said anything." This was the first time Jasmine would speak. At length, since the MSNBC moment. No network host, no segment clock. Just her and a microphone. She stepped up, adjusted it once, and began. "I've been called a lot of things," she said. "Steady, outspoken, loud, aggressive. Ghetto trash." The crowd stirred, unsettled. "But here's what I've learned about labels," she continued. "They don't define who we are. They define what makes other people uncomfortable about who we've always been." A few nods. A quiet "say that" from the second row. Jasmine leaned in. Ghetto doesn't mean what it used to. It doesn't mean poor or dangerous. It means unwelcome. That's what they're really saying when they say it. You don't belong here. You talk too real. You wear your history too openly. The room began to pulse, slow applause building and settling again. They want me quiet, but silence is how we got here. Silence is how they kept writing the story while we were still living it. She didn't glance at notes. She didn't pace. She spoke like someone who had carried the truth in her chest for years and was finally letting it breathe. They say we should just be grateful to sit at the table. she said, voice tightening. But they forget we built the damn table. This time the applause rose and stayed. Someone shouted, "Go ahead." She paused, took a sip of water, and then dropped her voice low. "I'm not here to fight one woman. I'm here so the next generation never has to apologize for their confidence, or explain why their voice makes people uncomfortable, or have their truth labeled as trash." The silence that followed was sharp, holding, sacred. Then her final line, "If the price of honesty is being called trash, I'll keep taking out the garbage." The room erupted, not in chaos, but in that deep, full-body kind of applause that stays with you, that you feel in your throat hours later. Afterward, she stayed, shaking hands, hugging elders, posing with teenagers in HBCU sweatshirts. One young woman, barely 20, approached with wet eyes and whispered, "You made me feel seen." Jasmine squeezed her hand. "You are seen. Don't ever shrink." That night, a shaky phone video of her speech filmed by a college student began circulating. Jasmine didn't post it. It posted itself. 12 hours later, it had 6.4 million views. A popular podcaster called it the best political speech in 5 years. Commentators invoked Barbara Jordan. Some even compared her impact to Michelle Obama. But this wasn't about comparisons anymore. Jasmine had stepped out of the reaction lane and into something far less controllable, and her critics felt it. A new question started making the rounds. Is Jasmine Crockett becoming the new face of political honesty? She didn't say yes. She didn't have to. But the louder her truth echoed, the more frantic her opposition became. What came next wouldn't be criticism. It would be sabotage. By the following Monday, the hit pieces started landing. Conservative blogs, fringe sites, same tone, same tactics, and none of them worked. Smear campaigns and backfires. How Jasmine Crockett's enemies made her stronger. It started. Small whispers on fringe sites and anonymous threads. Representative Crockett's financial past raises eyebrows. Who is Jasmine Crockett, really? The hidden radicalism behind the MSNBC darling. But the articles were flimsy. One referenced a missed utility bill from 2011. Another dredged up a minor landlord dispute from law school, something Jasmine had addressed publicly years ago. She read a few in silence from her office, then tossed her phone onto the couch. "They're fishing," she muttered. Andre leaned on the doorframe. "Ah, they're drowning." And he was right. None of the attacks stuck. They had no teeth, just dust thrown into the air to cloud her name. But then came the primetime hit. JOBA right-wing cable host promised a bombshell, exclusive audio of Jasmine Crockett making anti-American remarks at a private fundraiser. The clip ran after hours of teasing. What was the scandal? This country was never built to include us. We had to claw our way in. That was it. No slur, no rage, just history. Jasmine didn't respond online. She didn't need to. The internet did. Veterans reposted it. Teachers, activists, military families. Where's the lie? She's telling the truth, and they're scared of it. Say it louder. The smear campaign wasn't just failing, it was backfiring. But Jasmine knew better. In politics, bad faith doesn't stop. It reloads. One morning, a staffer came rushing in with a printed headline. Representative Crockett's mother arrested in civil rights protest. Is this the family legacy? Jasmine stared at it, blank-faced. She got arrested for sitting at a whites-only lunch counter, she said. If that's the best they've got, we're winning. They kept digging. One outlet tried linking her to campaign fund misuse, citing unconfirmed sources. A local news station in Amarillo picked it up, but quietly pulled the story 36 hours later after confirming it was false. Jasmine didn't threaten lawsuits. She didn't even tweet. By now, the public understood. They'd seen this playbook before, from Shirley Chisholm to Ilhan Omar. The racial dog whistles, the distorted sound bites. The faux outrage. A hashtag started trending. Hashtag, we know the playbook. It wasn't just support. It was a warning. We've seen how you treat powerful women of color, and we're not falling for it again. Jasmine's team didn't go on defense. They doubled down on outreach. Voter drives launched in Memphis, Tulsa, and Oakland. A mentorship program was created for Black girls aspiring to public service. Teachers across the country requested permission to use her MSNBC clip in civics classes. This wasn't just about Jasmine anymore. It was about who gets to speak and who gets punished for speaking too honestly. Behind the scenes, something else shifted. Donors once loyal to Ivanka began reaching out. Quiet meetings, cautious lunches. Some were moved, others were pragmatic. Power was changing direction, and they didn't want to be left behind. At one such meeting above a wine bar in Baton Rouge, a mid-tier venture capitalist leaned in and said, "I used to think people like you were dangerous." Jasmine folded her arms. "And now? Now I think people like you are necessary." She didn't smile. "We've always been necessary," she said. "You're just late." He nodded. Still here, though. That night, sitting on the edge of a hotel bed, Jasmine scrolled through her messages. One stood out. "My teacher made us watch your speech," a teenage girl from New Jersey had written. "I used to be scared to talk in class because of my accent, but now I raise my hand. You made me feel like I matter." Jasmine didn't reply right away. She just sat there still, full, and whispered to herself, "That's the whole point." The email that changed everything. Jasmine read the message 3 times. She didn't reply. She just took a screenshot and saved it to a folder on her phone labeled, "Why I Keep Going." But the real shift wasn't coming from the public. It was coming from inside Ivanka Trump's own world, and it would flip the entire narrative. The email arrived late at night, cryptic, urgent, unsigned. Andre found it first. Subject line, "I was there." It was worse than reported. He almost deleted it. By now, those kinds of emails were constant trolls, fans, opportunists hoping to offer a quote for clout. But this one was different. No fanfare, no flattery. Just this: "I was at the Silver Leaf event. I worked logistics for the Trump family for 4 years. I no longer do. I heard what Ivanka said." The media didn't even get the full quote. "If you're willing to talk off record, I'm ready to share everything." Andre forwarded it to Jasmine. No commentary. She called within minutes. "We vet them quietly," she said. "No leaks, no tweets, no press." He agreed. By the next evening, they were seated in a private room in a law office in Jackson, Mississippi. Jasmine's legal counsel was there. So was Andre. Across from them sat a woman in her early 30s, nervous fingers gripping a bottle of water. She introduced herself only as Lauren. "I handled advanced planning for Ivanka's appearances, guest lists, travel, media, security. Scottsdale was mine." Jasmine didn't say a word. She just let her talk. She didn't just call. "You ghetto trash." "Everyone knows that part," Lauren said, voice trembling slightly. What they didn't report was what she said next. Jasmine leaned in. She said, "The louder they are, the dumber they sound. All they know how to do is posture and play victim. Let her bark on cable news. That's all she's good at." Silence. Lauren pulled out her phone. "I didn't record it, but I wrote it down that night. Word for word, sent it to myself from a burner account, time-stamped." She slid the phone across the table. Jasmine read it. Her face gave nothing away. "I'm not giving this to the press," Lauren said quietly. "I just wanted you to know it wasn't heat of the moment. It was intentional. Cold, cruel, entitled. Jasmine finally spoke. Why now? Lauren hesitated. 'Cause I used to think I was helping something bigger. But I realized I was just helping them stay in power at the expense of people like you. Jasmine studied her, calm, focused, not angry, just awake. Thank you for coming, she said. That takes more courage than you know. Lauren nodded. If you need me to testify, I will. That time will come, Jasmine said. But for now, just stay safe. Let us carry it. When the meeting ended, Jasmine and Andre walked out into the thick Mississippi night. No words exchanged, not until they reached the car. So, Andre asked, what do we do with it? Jasmine didn't even pause. We build with it, not burn. They didn't release a statement. Not yet. Instead, they moved through quiet channels, reaching out to political donors, still cautiously backing Ivanka's next act. The message was clear. We have the full truth. Are you sure you want your name attached when it surfaces? Within 48 hours? 3 donors backed out. One redirected a 6-figure contribution to Jasmine's PAC and Lauren. She slipped back into the shadows, but not before sending one final message. I used to think power meant knowing everything first. Now, I think it means knowing when to stop protecting the wrong people. The impact was immediate. Quiet, but real. Ivanka canceled 2 upcoming events, Boise and Wilmington, citing scheduling conflicts. Insiders knew better. Her brand was bleeding, and no amount of curated family photos could patch it. Meanwhile, Jasmine showed up quietly at school board meetings in Cincinnati, roundtables in Fresno, and small business forums in Mobile. No cameras, no press, just presence. Reporters began to change their framing. She was no longer the fiery freshman from Texas. Now they used words like measured, formidable, influential, and voters noticed. At a town hall in Des Moines, an older black woman stood up during open mic and said, "You didn't just shut her down. You did it without raising your voice. You reminded us how dignity speaks." Jasmine smiled. Sometimes, she said, the loudest clapback is calm. But calm doesn't mean passive. And what came next would take Jasmine Crockett from movement leader to national figure. All it took was one room, one voice, one moment that didn't go silent. Rhetoric and responsibility. The marble halls of the Senate hearing room in Washington, D.C. were cold and cavernous, designed to intimidate. The walls had echoed with centuries of power, some righteous, many rotten. And today, they would echo with something different. They were about to hear from Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. The hearing was officially titled Rhetoric and Responsibility in Political Leadership. Neutral in name, transparent in purpose. Everyone knew what it was. Really about the slur, the silence, and the storm that followed. Jasmine hadn't lobbied to be there. She didn't call in favors. The invitation came only after weeks of mounting public pressure from advocacy groups, donors, and even a few moderate conservatives who finally admitted this could no longer be ignored. She arrived alone. No entourage, no cameras. Just a slim folder in one hand and a pen tucked behind her ear. Inside, senators from both parties filled the panel, some curious, others defensive, most doing their best to look impartial. Jasmine took her seat, adjusted the microphone, and waited. Senator Elias Browder, a centrist from Vermont, opened the session. Congresswoman Crockett, thank you for joining us. We recognize these past weeks have been intense. Would you care to make an opening statement? She didn't blink. Thank you, Senator, she said, leaning forward, voice clear and even. I'll keep it short. I'm not here today because someone used an ugly phrase. I'm here because of what? That phrase represents who it targets, who it excludes, and who it protects. The room stilled. It didn't call me ghetto trash because I lack intelligence or worth. They used those words to remind me, and others like me, that no matter how educated or elected we are, some people still see us as disposable. She let the silence hang. I don't need an apology. I don't need pity. What I need, what this country needs, is for this body to stop pretending that damage only happens when cameras are rolling. The real harm, she said, eyes sweeping the room, that happens in whispers behind velvet curtains and oak doors. A few senators shifted uncomfortably. Others stared at their notes, knowing exactly which rooms she meant. She went on. Words matter not because they hurt feelings, but because they shape policy. They justify behavior. They excuse violence. Her voice never rose, but the weight behind it did. I'm not angry, she said. I'm awake. I'm tired of being the only one who has to explain why basic respect isn't optional. She paused, then turned briefly to Senator Willow Dunn, a known Ivanka Trump ally. The senator looked away. Then Jasmine spoke to someone who wasn't even in the room. To the young girl in Tulsa who sent me a drawing of herself behind a podium like this one, I see you. You don't have to change your name, your voice, or your hair to belong here. You already do. Applause broke out, not from the senators, but from the public gallery behind her. Community leaders, educators, students, and a few familiar faces from protests past. Senator Browder tapped his gavel, attempting order. Thank you, Congresswoman. We appreciate your perspective. A Republican senator from Nevada leaned in. With respect, Congresswoman, are you suggesting our political system is inherently biased? Jasmine looked him in the eye. I'm not suggesting it, she said. I'm living proof. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was a reckoning. Outside, reporters swarmed. Congresswoman, should Ivanka Trump issue a public apology? She kept walking. She can apologize or not, Jasmine said. Either way, I'm good. Another reporter asked, what do you say to critics who think you're using this moment for political gain? She stopped. I'd say, if speaking the truth gained something, maybe that truth was long overdue. Back in her office, Jasmine finally sat down. It had been a long day. Andre entered, carrying a cardboard box. Fan mail, he said with a crooked smile. Mostly kids. He opened it. Letters, crayon drawings, folded notebook paper. One stood out. Kid from Savannah made you a friendship bracelet. Said it's for strength. Jasmine picked it. Upworn, messy, bright. She slipped it over her wrist, then stared at it for a long moment. This, she finally said. This is bigger than a headline. Bigger than a clip. Andre nodded. This is legacy stuff. Jasmine turned to the window. The Capitol dome stood in the distance, silent, unmoved. But for the first time, she didn't feel like she was looking up at power. She felt like she was it. She turned back and smiled, soft, but real. Let's keep going. Because the words meant to break her had done the opposite. They'd built something instead, something rooted in dignity, shaped by truth, and empowered by every voice that refused to stay silent. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe. Keep showing up. The fight isn't over, and every voice still matters.